I'm James Turk. I'm a director of the GoldMoney Foundation. I'm here with Steffen Krug of the Institute for Austrian Asset Management. And Steffen is one of the co-sponsors of this conference here in Hamburg, Germany. Steffen, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'd like to talk to you a little bit first about the Institute for Austrian Asset Management, the background, and how you created it.
Yeah. Actually, I came up with Austrian Asset Management back in 2008 when I was looking for an investment style for my clients which would be working for the financial circumstances we are having right now. And so I found out that value investing, which is the most natural Austrian investment style, doesn't work anymore because of the distorted price and interest structure we are having right now. And so then I kept on looking and couldn't find anything. And so I made up the name Austrian Asset Management, which is basically a value investor who understands the Austrian Business Cycle Theory and understands that prices and interest rates are distorted and he has to take care of it. And that's the basic difference. And when you take a look at these asset managers, like we're having here these days, like Klaus Vogt or Flossbach von Storch or Mack and Weise, they did much better, especially in 2008, than the classical value investor, than Warren Buffett, for example.
So an understanding of the Austrian business cycle is key.
Yes.
And the Austrian business cycle comes about because of the lending by banks, and then ultimately too much lending leads to over-leverage. That over-leverage ultimately leads to a bust, where bank balance sheets and borrower balance sheets have to come back to more prudent levels. And that's basically where we are at the moment, in the financial bust. Would you agree?
Exactly. And then the value investor, he's not capable anymore to, by the time he's doing his analysis, he can't come up with a good win and loss situation because prices are so much distorted, it doesn't give him any good information. And then the question comes, if prices don't work anymore and the interest rates don't tell me the true subjective value of the people, so what to do then? And so I was looking for assets, where you can invest without knowing anything about, like in a socialist system. If you don't have prices, where to invest in. And there I came up with 3 asset classes, which I think work all the time. And so that is basically commodity, gold and silver. That is family business, because they are very quick in changing their business strategy. If they find out it doesn't work, they can change it.
To adjust to the economic conditions.
Exactly, yeah. Adjust it. And the third thing is what we call in German Substanzwert. It's like a deep value approach, where you invest in things which work all the time. Mm-hmm. Like food, telecommunications, and these things where you know that even after a financial worldwide collapse, these things, will work. So deep value. Yeah.
Understood. One of the points that I always like to make is that the point you're making about prices being a distortion and not getting a true reflection of economic conditions. I often say, or I always say, that you really have to look at prices in terms of gold, because over long periods of time, gold does give you a better indication of the true economic value of an asset. And I like to use the example, for example, that an ounce of gold today buys the same amount of crude oil it did 50 or 60 years ago. Right. And you can't say that about the euro or the dollar or any other currency. Right. So while you're using these currencies for which the prices are changing and fluctuating, if you're an entrepreneur or a businessman trying to make an investment decision, you can ultimately very easily make a very bad investment decision using dollars or euros instead of actually looking at the employment of your capital in terms of ounces of gold or grams of gold. So I'm an adherent to the Austrian school as well.
Yeah, that's the decisive step to have to get real money in order to make up the calculation again. And the gold standard and gold money system is just the way to do it. And I don't know, you know better, how much manipulated, the gold prices in the moment or the silver prices. Mm-hmm. But if these were free markets, that would be a perfect price mechanism to work with. Much better than paper currency than euro, because this doesn't work anymore. So I agree. Yes.
Yeah, Mises said that governments, or speaking politicians, will destroy free markets long before they ever understand how they work. And I think we're seeing probably a good example of that worldwide, how government interference continues to impact and slowly erode the natural process of the market. And I think that's unfortunate.
Right, and for asset management, I mean, it's getting harder and harder, because markets get more and more volatile, and all you do is basically all day long. You don't start choosing good companies while you're investing, but you all day long you have to take care of the volatility of the markets, and so that's useless, worthless, But you have to spend time on doing things like this, and that's crazy, actually,
Is there much value in the German stock market at this moment in time?
Again, I can't. Normally, I would say it's they are much too high up in the moment. They are much too expensive. But what's the alternative right now? Okay, if you have gold and silver, you don't want to stay in German Bundesanleihen anymore. So then you keep on spending, even in the German stock market. Although you might think, oh, it's too expensive, but where's the alternative? So you keep on investing in it. Yeah.
And as long as the ECB keeps creating euros, those euros have to go somewhere. So inevitably, they're going to end up in the stock market.
Right.
A little bit like what happened during the Weimar Republic. All the Reichsmarks that were being created ended up in the stock market, and the stock market soared along with the drop in the purchasing power of the Reichsmark.
Exactly. And that's what we had in Turkey too in the 90s, And, so
we've seen it in a lot of different countries around the world, particularly in the last 20, 30 years, how currencies get destroyed from too much inflation. We're here in Hamburg, which not only is a center of commerce for Germany today, but was also a center of commerce throughout history, particularly in the Hanseatic League, which was a major trading and commercial group for many, many years. Can we talk a little bit about that and the money that they used during the period of the Hansa?
Yeah, since Hamburg was a major trading center, especially in the Hanse time and after this time, a lot of currencies within Hamburg were traveling around, and people had to trade with different silver and gold monetary units, and they had to calculate all the time, Thaler and all these other things, and that was very complicated for the Hamburg merchants. And so in the 16th century, they started, how can we improve it? How can we make it more efficient? And they came up with a system that they said, okay, we take 3 Thaler, and out of 3 Thaler, we make 1 Mark Banco. And so it came up that about 8.5 grams silver would be 1 Mark Banco. And so now, when people came to Hamburg and started, to trade, you wouldn't bother, what currency that is. You would just take the coin, and you would see, oh, how much weight is this? And then you give it to the Hamburger Mark Banco, and they would say, okay, it's, for example, 250 gram, and so for 250 gram, you get this and this amount of Mark Banco. And so every time you knew, it's 1 Mark Banco, it's 8.5 gram of silver.
So the word mark is actually a measure of weight.
Exactly. The Mark Banco is a measure of weight.
And the weight in this case was actually silver. So the Hansa Group was basically trading in terms of silver.
Yes, right.
And
right.
What did it do for trade? Did it improve trade when they had this common currency for use?
Oh yes, the Mark Banco was so popular among the people that even merchants who were not located in Hamburg started using the Mark Banco, because it was much easier for them to calculate with different currencies. Mm-hmm. And so they had one common denominator, that was the Mark Banco. And so even merchants in Amsterdam, in Madrid, they were using the Mark Banco because it was was a reference, and you could very easy, calculate your trade business.
What happened to it?
Actually, it ended when Bismarck took over Germany in 1870, and until 1870 we had in Germany we had a system, a gold and a silver standard. That's what we had, and actually most of the trades were done in silver. Silver was much more used and much more common in Germany. And then somehow Bismarck came up with the gold standard, and so they had to stop the Mark Banco, which was very successful for 250 years. Mm-hmm. And because it was so popular among the people, Bismarck figured, okay, if I call the new currency Reichsmark, the people, will say, okay, yeah, we still have our mark, that's fine. And that's how he came up with Reichsmark instead of, saying Reichsthaler, which would be much more obvious and logic. But no, he came up with Reichsmark, and that's where the name Mark comes from the Mark Banco. And 250 years history of stable money of 100% silver standard. And that's very, very unusual. And as far as I know, the only example of a bank which throughout his entire history always kept a 100% silver standard. Yeah.
So clearly something that Murray Rothbard would agree with.
Oh yeah.
Non-fractional reserve banking.
And me too. Huh?
And me too. So when the Hansa was trading, what about its relationships beyond the league itself? Amsterdam wasn't part of it, Venice wasn't part of it, but didn't the currency also circulate to those countries as well?
It wasn't a currency in the sense that you had a coin. So it was only what we call in German Buchgeld. It was an accounting standard, and the Hanseatic merchants in Hamburg, they only wrote it in their books. So you wouldn't even get a certificate. Mm-hmm. It was just in the books of the banks. Mm-hmm. But there you knew that every time you could go there and say, I have this and that amount of money, give me the silver. And you could do it anytime you wanted. And the reason we know there was, during the 250 years, always a 100% reserve is by the time Napoleon came to Hamburg, and he looked down in the vaults, and he realized Hamburg was the only bank in Europe which had more than 100%. So he was looking in the books and he couldn't believe it, because he realized, hey, more than 100, I think it was 102%. And so this is why we know that they really kept the 100% in the vaults.
That's very interesting. Banking today really has two separate functions. It has the lending function and it has the payments function. But historically, you had two different types of banks, what I call banks of credit, which made loans, and banks of commerce, which were responsible just for the payments, and they didn't put the money in the bank at risk. They were more like vaults, which kept the money safe and secure. And that's what we're trying to do, in GoldMoney, create a payment system that's safe and secure. So perhaps the predecessor to GoldMoney was the Mark Banco here in Hamburg.
You are the Mark Banco of the 21st century.
Using modern technology, though, because instead of doing record keeping through books and sending notices by the post, we're actually doing it digitally through your PC or through your Apple iPhone to make payments. Turning to the euro, what's your view on the euro, and more generally or more broadly, how does Germany view the euro?
I mean, for us Germans, the euro is a thing you will not discuss about. It's like you will not discuss about the Nazi time. So the euro is a political feature, and you don't really question the euro in Germany.
It's just accepted without question?
It's accepted, and
even if it's doing poorly?
Exactly.
And even though it's not being managed like the Deutsche Mark was managed?
And we will give another 60 billion to Greece, and not many people will complain. They don't will broadcast it in the media, and it's a typical German thing. And I mean, we will keep on spending until Germany is in the same situation like Greece right now. So that will happen. That's for sure. Yeah.
But given what's been happening in the elections at the local level and state level over the past year or so, it seems like there's a lot of discontent with the way things are being done at the moment. given the way the election results have occurred. Is that a reflection that people are becoming concerned about the euro, even though the economy in Germany is doing relatively well?
Yeah, there are more and more people. Actually, right, I think yesterday the Free Democrats, they were voting on it, and but it was like 2/3 of the Free Democrats, they were against this. When it comes up to the European Stability Mechanism, there's this German guy from the Free Democrats, Frank Schäffler, and so he started an initiative to stop this process. And just yesterday they were voting on it, and I think 150 or 160 people from the Free Democrats, they were the same opinion like him. They would say, no, we have to stop it, but still 2/3, like I think 300 people voted against it, because like people like Westerwelle and Rössler, they were saying, okay, we are responsible. We are the governing party, and we just can't do it. But yeah, there are many more people right now who are getting aware of the problems. But I don't think this will in the next years this will become a majority. I think more and more people, but it will remain a minority. And by the time the system busts, then they will wake up, but not before.
Yeah. One of the speakers here at the conference is great because you have some of Germany's foremost monetary experts, and one of these is Professor Hankel, who's one of the gentlemen bringing suit in the German Supreme Court about the constitutionality of the euro. It seems quite obvious that the euro is unconstitutional, as the constitution is now written here in Germany. I don't know if you agree with that, but it seems that way to me. But how is that court case progressing?
I'm not very much informed about how this court case is going on, but I really appreciate what he's doing. And I mean, they started suing against the euro by the time it started, back in the 90s already. And I was already back then. I was supporting these people, but politically, once you position yourself in this direction, they will.
But everything they were saying seems to be proving right.
Exactly, yeah.
But the Supreme Court, for some reason, has been delaying action. Is that because politically they just don't want to go there?
Oh yeah, it's all politics. Yes, they just. I mean, they will put it aside, and then next year they will say, oh yeah, but this and that is still missing, and we need to take another look at it, and maybe the year after we will decide. And so they just move ahead, because from the judicial point of view, it's clear. It's clear. I mean, they are right, and the government is wrong. So they will not make a decision. That's what I think.
It's just another indication then that the euro is really under political control, and that it's really not independent of the ruling politicians. I use the example of the Greek crisis, the meeting last May 2010. After pledging not to buy government bonds for many months, Mr. Trichet on Monday. The Monday following the political crisis started buying Greek government bonds. It was obviously under political control. The fact that the Supreme Court here in Germany doesn't want to pursue or listen to the merits of this case that's been brought, perhaps that's another indication of political control. But that sort of flies in the face of the Bundesbank, because the Bundesbank was politically independent, and that's why the Deutschmark did so well for so many years. The example I like to use is look at the record of the Deutschmark from 1950 to 2000 compared to the French franc from 1950 to 2000. The French franc being under political control and the Bundesbank being completely independent. You have two entirely different results, with the Deutschmark obviously being a much better currency.
But even the Deutschmark lost 95% of its purchasing power. So,
but compared to others,
but compared to others, they did great. But compared to gold and silver, they lost 95%. You know? So, I mean, what are we talking about? I mean, that's I'm not a supporter of the Deutschmark, and that's a point where I disagree with Hankel and Henkel, you know, and all these guys who think by the time we get the Deutschmark back, everything will be fine. No, that's fiat money, and it doesn't work. No.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's not really pro gold, but he is pro Deutschmark.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, it's from the establishment point of view, thinking that people can do a better job managing money than the natural market, which would be, you know, of course, you know, gold is a natural form of money that politicians can't control or create out of thin air, I should say. Well, Steffen, it's been a pleasure chatting with you this morning. I've been enjoying the conference, meeting some very interesting people. Wish you best of luck in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.